agronomist. Today I'm going to talk about gardening smarter, not harder. I know I'm normally talking about stuff that just grows wild that you can just pick up and eat, or that you have to process to eat, or that has medicinal values, but a big part of being self-sustainable is being able to grow some of your own foods. You can't necessarily, in a lot of areas, harvest everything that you're going to need to sustain your family. Certain areas, you know, one person can forage enough stuff to sustain life year-round, but the flavors are going to get bland after a while unless you get really creative. So part of my self-sustainability that I try to do is garden. Now, one thing that I've run into over the past couple of years, I'm on a fairly new place to me, and when I moved here, I changed agricultural zones by one subzone. Now, that doesn't sound like a whole lot, and I didn't think it was going to be a whole lot, but it did turn out to be more than I was expecting. And I changed soil types, which was actually really big, and my time that I had to put into the garden decreased quite a bit. So my first year garden didn't do very well. My second year garden did better. I actually did real good, but by the end of the year I kind of lost it, and due to time constraints. So I'm going to show you how that I am, one, cutting down on costs of gardening, two, how I'm doing it so that I have as little time input in it as I can, and just kind of show you how to do it. Now, I know that raised bed gardening is a really big thing right now, and I love raised bed gardening. But here's the thing. Unless you're in an area where you're lucky enough to have one of these places that you can go buy good quality topsoil or a topsoil mulch mixture by the truckload, a raised bed gardening gets really expensive really quickly, especially if you're having to buy topsoil by the bag. So I'm doing in-ground, no-till, very little weeding gardening, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so here you can see my current garden plot. Small, but that's okay. I'm slowly, gradually taking over the backyard. Now, what I have done is, from work and from some of the big box places, they throw away or recycle this cardboard, and they'll give you cardboard for next to nothing. You'll notice it doesn't have any printing on it, no ink on it, anything like that. So I'm getting boxes like mad. I'm also mulching around all of my plants. You'll notice that there are absolutely no weeds, or very few. And the amount of weeding I have to do is very little. Now, you may be thinking, what's the difference between buying topsoil and buying mulch? Well, I'm going to show you the difference. Once again, unless you're lucky enough to live in an area where you have a big mulch supply place, you have to buy it by the bag. I don't like that. So, what is mulch? All mulch is, if you're buying it by the bag, is nothing but ground up pine bark and a little bit of branches and stuff. Now, if you're buying it from some of the big places, it's whole limbs that have been chewed up and ground up and all like that. So, if we had a chipper, we could make our own mulch. I actually got the chipper that's behind me for free from a friend of mine who could not sell it at a yard sale. Had I have known, I would have bought it from her, but she told me no. She didn't need it, didn't want it, so she's going to get rid of it. She found out that I wanted it, and she gave it to me. Now, it's an electric wood chipper, so it does have its challenges. But for anything up to 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch, it'll chew right through just as pretty as you please. Now, the bagged mulch, I actually have a mixture of both. The bagged mulch is fairly large chips. And it's going to get loud, and I'm sorry in advance. The result of the little chipper is a much finer shaving with little twigs. Now you probably noticed that I put it in there with leaves and all right straight on it. That actually mixes your greens or your nitrogen with your carbons automatically. Now I've used it to make compost and used it as an ingredient, and then added other stuff in it, and it did a really good job. Mulch, as long as it's spread, you know, a couple inches thin, it will go through a heat, but it won't go through anything major. Now, but it does make a good quality mulch that's going to keep the weeds down. There is going to be a bit of a nitrogen uptake, so you're going to have to fertilize pretty good. But if you're using fish emulsifier or any of the organics or anything like that, you're just going to put it on it about twice as often. That's going to break it down quicker. Now, by doing this, next year I'll have even less weeds that I have to fight with than I did this year, even though I'm putting it down. Because every year you're improving your soil and you're limiting the number of seeds that germinate from stuff that you don't want in your garden. So this saves me labor this year, it saves me labor next year, and it actually improves my soil. So this is the way that I'm gardening, and we're slowly taking over the entire backyard in this type, because, you know, now my kids are up old enough where they don't really want to play outside in the back. They don't do the basketball thing anymore. They want to go to the lake and the river and in the woods and stuff like that, which is kind of the way I was too. So I hope you enjoy this. Should have a follow-up later on in the year, just to let you see how everything's growing, see how everything's progressing. This is Greg the Rural Economist, and step by step we're bringing rural back. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. And if you have a question about anything related to self-reliance, foraging, homesteading, anything like that, send me an email at theruraleconomist@gmail.com. I'm honest enough that if I don't know, I'll tell you, and if I do know, I'll make a video about it. Thanks. Have a great day.